My family tried to steal my inheritance, but I outwitted them and left them speechless. My aunt slid the folder across the dining table like she was handing me a menu, not asking me to sign away the last thing my grandfather ever did for me. The paper edges scraped against the wood, and the sound somehow cut louder than the murmurs in the next room, where people were still eating casserole and whispering funeral small talk. "It's just to make things easier," she said, smiling too hard. "We're all tired. You're tired. Just sign, and we'll sort it out like adults." My cousin's toddler was banging a spoon against a plastic cup at the end of the table, rhythmic and cheerful in a way that made my stomach turn. I could still smell lilies from the service on my coat. My eyes felt dry and gritty from crying all morning, and my head was still buzzing from the pastor saying my grandfather's name in that slow, careful tone like grief had to be pronounced properly. I stared at the signature line while my uncle hovered behind my chair, close enough that his cologne and coffee breath mixed into something sour. My mom sat across from me with her hands folded, watching my face like she was waiting for me to do the right thing. The pen my aunt offered was already uncapped. I picked it up because my fingers were on autopilot, because my body still thought compliance was safer than conflict, and the second the pen touched my skin, I felt this cold flash of panic. The folder was full of family settlement language, neat paragraphs about equal distribution and mutual agreement, and waiving claims. Waiving claims, like my grandfather's wishes were a negotiable inconvenience. My aunt leaned in, voice syrupy. "We're not trying to take anything from you. We just don't want drama." Grandpa wouldn't want drama. I could hear my own breath, shallow and fast, and my hand started to tremble. My uncle's shadow fell over the page like pressure. Somewhere behind the wall, someone laughed too loudly at a joke that wasn't funny. My cousin called out, "More iced tea?" Like this was just another Sunday. I swallowed and tasted salt. I looked up at my aunt's smile, at my mom's blank face, and my uncle's expectant eyes, and I set the pen down very carefully. So carefully it wouldn't click, then said, "No." It was a Tuesday night, 3 weeks earlier, when my grandfather sat at the edge of his bed in the hospice room and asked me to promise him something that made my throat close up. The room was dim except for the little reading lamp, and the air smelled like antiseptic and that faint, sweet medical smell of softened skin. The TV was on mute, showing some game show he wasn't watching. His hands looked smaller than they used to, the veins raised like blue strings. He squeezed my fingers and said, "They're going to try." His voice was rough, like every word scraped. I had been smoothing his blanket, pretending I was fine, because if I didn't pretend, I would fall apart right there. "Try what?" I asked, already knowing. He did that tiny, tired smile he did when he didn't have the energy for euphemisms. "To turn it into a committee," he said. "To make you feel guilty. To make you give it away to keep peace." He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them and fixed me with this sharpness that didn't belong to a dying man. "Don't." One word, heavy as a stone. "Promise me you won't let them rewrite me when I'm gone." I'd always been the one in the family who got rewritten. If something went missing, it was probably me. If someone's feelings got hurt, it was because I was too blunt. If there was a gap in the story, they shoved me into it as the reason. I was the difficult grandkid, the one who moved out early, the one who didn't show up to every barbecue, the one who thought she was better because I went to uni and didn't marry my high school boyfriend. Meanwhile, my cousins could fail upward for years and still get praised for trying. My mom would say things like, "You know how you are," like it was a diagnosis. But my grandfather, Pop, was the one person who never let that version of me be the whole story. He didn't talk in affirmations. He just noticed. He noticed I showed up. He noticed I asked questions. He noticed I did what I said I would do. When he started getting sick, it was me driving him to appointments while everyone else texted, "Thinking of you, red heart," and then went back to their lives. Pop wasn't rich, not mansion rich, not movies about inheritance rich. He was the kind of quietly careful rich that comes from never trusting shiny promises. He owned the small house he'd lived in for 40 years, weatherboard, creaky porch, lemon tree out back. He had savings. He had a few investments he'd set up back when people still use paper statements. He also had one big thing no one in our family ever talked about without turning their voices into hungry little whispers. Land. Not a massive farm, but a strip of property he'd bought decades ago when it was nothing, and now it sat right on the edge of a development zone. Every family gathering for the past 5 years had included at least one person saying, if Pop ever sold that block, like it was a lottery ticket just waiting to scratch. Pop knew exactly what they were like. He loved them anyway, in his own gruff way, but he didn't trust them with decisions, especially not decisions made in a fog of grief and entitlement. So he got organized. I didn't find out because I snooped. He told me because he wanted a witness. The night he asked for my promise, he reached to the side table and tapped a plain manila envelope. That's the copy, he said. The real one is already lodged. He waited until I looked at him. I didn't do it to punish anyone, he said, like he could see the accusation forming in the air already. I did it because I'm tired of watching people take shortcuts with your life. He swallowed hard, pain flickering across his face. You were there. You showed up. And you don't let people talk you out of reality unless you love them. His eyes softened. Stop loving them like that. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say they're family. I wanted to say it'll be fine. But I'd sat through too many dinners where my aunt joked, if you ever need money, just ask Pop, while Pop's jaw tightened. I'd seen my uncle help Pop with paperwork and somehow always walk away with a benefit. I'd watch my mom borrow against Pop's kindness and then call me selfish for not doing the same. So I nodded, and my voice came out small when I said, okay. Then Pop said the part that mattered. They'll try to get you to sign something, he said. They'll call it unity. They'll call it peace. They'll make you feel like you're stealing from them, even though it's mine. He squeezed my hand again. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. Tell them you need a day. Tell them you need a lawyer. Tell them you need to breathe. Just don't sign. I promised him. And then, because Pop was Pop, he added, and if they're ugly to you after I'm gone, that's them. Not you. He died 10 days later, quietly, in the early morning when the sky was still dark and the hospital hallway lights made everything look flat and unreal. I got the call. I drove there. I held his hand while it was still warm. I stood in the parking lot afterward and felt like my chest was a hollow cave. Grief isn't poetic when it hits. It's heavy and physical and stupid. I remember thinking, absurdly, about how he'd never get to taste my terrible attempt at his roast potatoes again. I remember wanting to text him something and then remembering you can't. The first thing my family did wasn't ask if I was okay. It was form a group chat without me. Bree, my cousin who's always been quietly kind, sent me a screenshot 2 days after the funeral. My aunt had written, we need to make sure the estate gets handled fairly. No one person should be in charge, especially not someone emotional. My uncle replied, she'll do what her mother tells her. My mom replied, I'll talk to her. She won't make trouble. She knows her place. And then my aunt again, bring the paper Sunday. We'll do it after the service while everyone's together. It was like reading my own autopsy written by people who were annoyed I was still alive. So I did what Pop taught me. I got organized quietly. I called the solicitor Pop had used. His name was already in the envelope, and Pop had underlined it once in pen like he didn't trust anyone not to see it. The receptionist didn't sound surprised when I said my name. We've been expecting you, she said gently, and that almost broke me. I went in the next morning. The office smelled like carpet and coffee and paper, that dry legal smell. The solicitor, Mr. Tan, was calm and kind in that way professionals are when they've seen too much family ugliness to be shocked. He slid a folder toward me and said, your grandfather lodged his will properly. He was very clear. He paused, watching my face. He also left a letter for you. I opened it right there and read Pop's handwriting. Messy, firm, unmistakable. He wrote about the lemon tree. He wrote about the block. He wrote about my habit of trying to fix things for people who didn't want fixing. He wrote, don't let them call you greedy for respecting me. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard it hurt because if I cried in that office, I wasn't sure I'd stop. Mr. Tan explained the basics. Pop had appointed me as executor. He'd left specific gifts to specific people, small, intentional things. He'd left the house to me. The development block was set to be sold, with proceeds split between a handful of beneficiaries. And yes, I was one of them, but not the only one. He wasn't cutting everyone out. He was just refusing to let the loudest people take over. What do I do when they get angry? I asked because I already knew they would. Mr. Tan didn't flinch. You don't argue, he said. You don't justify. You follow the will. And you don't sign any family agreements without legal review. So when Sunday came, the day of the service, the day my family planned to corner me, I didn't come empty-handed like they assumed. I came with two things: Pop's letter in my bag like a talisman, and Mr. Tan's contact details on my phone like a shield. And I came with one more thing Pop had insisted on, quietly, months earlier. He'd asked me to record a short video with him. Not a dramatic gotcha. Just him, sitting at his kitchen table, talking about what he wanted, in his own words, with today's newspaper visible in the frame because Pop watched too many crime shows and didn't trust anyone. At the time, I'd roll my eyes and laughed, and Pop had said, humor me. So I did. And now that little video sat on my phone like a loaded truth. Back in the dining room after the funeral reception, my aunt's folder was still open in front of me, the signature line glaring. My aunt's smile tightened. Leah, she said, voice pitched like she was talking to a child, don't do this. Don't make it ugly. We're trying to keep everyone together. I stared at the paper. I could feel my heart pounding in my ribs. My uncle leaned forward, elbows on the table. It's simple, he said. We split everything evenly. That's what Pop would have wanted. That was the thing that made me almost laugh. Pop was not an evenly man. Pop was a fairly man. Those are not the same. My mom finally spoke. Your aunt is right, she said, eyes hard. You know your place in this family. Don't embarrass us. I felt something cold settle in me. My place. I repeated quietly. Mom's nostrils flared. Don't twist my words. My aunt tapped the paper with her manicured nail. Sign. And that's when I did the simplest, most satisfying thing I've ever done in my life. I pushed the folder back toward her. No, I said again, calm. I'm not signing anything today. My uncle's face darkened. You think you're special now. I think I'm grieving, I said. And I think it's gross that you're trying to rush me. My aunt's voice went sharp. Are you going to take everything? Is that it? You're going to steal it. There it was. The word. Steal. Like Pop didn't choose. Like I'd broken into his drawers and grabbed cash. I took a slow breath. I'm not stealing anything, I said. Pop made his choices. If you want to talk about his choices, we can do that with his solicitor present. My aunt's eyes widened. Solicitor? My uncle scoffed. He didn't have a solicitor. Don't be dramatic. I looked at them, really looked at their confidence, and felt this strange clarity. They genuinely believed they could bully reality into changing. They believed paperwork only mattered if it benefited them. I met with Mr. Tan, I said, and watched the table freeze. Pops was already lodged. My mom's face went pale in a way I'd never seen. Why would you do that without telling me? She snapped, as if I needed permission to talk to a solicitor about my dead grandfather. Because you call me emotional in a group chat and plan to corner me, I said, and my voice stayed even though my hand was sweating. Because Pop asked me to handle this properly. My aunt's laugh came out high and brittle. Oh, please, she said. Pop wouldn't put you in charge. He knew you couldn't handle responsibility. My chest tightened with that old familiar sting, but it didn't sink in like it used to. It slid off. Because I knew something they didn't. Pop had already anticipated this exact insult. So I reached into my bag and pulled out the manila envelope Pop had given me. I didn't slap it on the table. I placed it down like a fact. I slid out the copy of the will and turned it so my aunt could see the first page. Pop's name, the date, the solicitor's details, and, right there, my name listed as executor. My aunt's mouth opened and then shut. My uncle leaned forward, squinting like the words might rearrange if he stared hard enough. My mom whispered, no. My cousin, Dean's sister, made a little choking noise like she'd swallowed wrong. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just said, Pop appointed me executor. If you have concerns, you can raise them with Mr. Tan. I won't be signing any family settlement today. My aunt found her voice first, because of course she did. Anger is her oxygen. He was manipulated, she snapped. You were always in his ear. You isolated him. You made him. Stop, Bree said from the doorway, sharp and sudden. Everyone turned. Bree had tears in her eyes, furious tears. You didn't visit him for months, she said. You can't even pretend. My aunt spun. This is none of your business. It became my business when you started talking about it, like you'd won a prize, Bree shot back. Her voice shook. He was a person. My uncle slammed his palm on the table, making the cutlery jump. So that's it then, he growled at me. You're taking the house. I'm not taking it, I said. Pop left it to me. My mom's voice was suddenly soft, dangerous soft. Leah, she said, think about what you're doing. If you do this, you're choosing money over family. I stared at her and felt this deep, exhausted sadness. You chose money over Pop, I said quietly. You're just mad he didn't choose you. The words hung in the air like smoke. My aunt's face went blotchy red. He wouldn't do this, she insisted, voice rising. He loved us. He wouldn't punish us. He didn't punish you, I said. He planned around you. And then, because I could feel them gearing up to rewrite again, to claim Pop was confused, to imply I forged it. I did the thing Pop would have laughed at if he were here. I have a video, I said. My uncle barked a laugh. A video? What is this, some reality show? It's Pop, I said, in his kitchen, saying what he wanted. He asked me to record it months ago. My mom's eyes widened with panic. Don't you dare. I didn't want to humiliate them. I didn't want to hurt them. I wanted them to stop. There's a difference. So I didn't play it for the whole house. I didn't send it to the group chat. I didn't blast it like a weapon. I unlocked my phone, turned the screen toward my aunt, and hit play. Low volume, just enough for the people at the table to hear. Pop's face filled the screen, alive and solid and very much himself. The newspaper was on the table beside him. He looked straight into the camera and said, in that blunt Pop voice, if you're watching this, it means I'm gone. Leah is my executor. That's my decision. Don't argue with her like she stole something. I left what I left to who I left it to. If you can't respect that, that's on you. My aunt went white. My uncle's jaw worked like he wanted to spit out denial, but couldn't find the words. My mom stared at the phone like it was a ghost. I stopped the video. My hands were shaking now, but my voice stayed steady because it was too late to retreat into softness. That's all, I said. Pop was clear. Mr. Tan will handle communication going forward. If you want to challenge anything, do it through the proper channels. But you won't bully me into signing away his choices. The room went silent in that stunned, thick way that feels like pressure in your ears. In the next room, someone laughed at a joke, clueless. A plate clinked. Life kept happening while our little family drama stalled. My aunt swallowed hard. You think you've won, she hissed finally, and her eyes glittered with the kind of hatred that isn't even about money anymore. It's about control. I surprised myself by not getting loud. No, I said. Pop won. He got to decide. My uncle stood so abruptly his chair scraped the floor. This is disgusting, he spat. After everything we've done for you. I wanted to laugh, because what had they done for me? Besides teach me how to survive being dismissed? But I didn't say that. I just said, please leave. My mom shot up too. You can't tell us to leave. It's not your house, I said, and the sentence felt unreal on my tongue. Not triumphant, just factual. My mom's face crumpled for a second, like something inside her finally understood, and then she snapped it back in anger. You'll regret this, she whispered, and I could hear the promise in it. The smear campaign, the cold shoulders, the family narrative that I was greedy, unstable, cruel. Maybe a year ago the threat would have crushed me. I would have folded just to keep the peace. But Pop's voice was still echoing in my head. Stop loving them like that. So I looked at my mom and said, softly, I already regret a lot. This isn't one of them. The weeks that followed weren't a clean victory montage. They were messy, bureaucratic, emotionally draining. My aunt called me 17 times in one day and left voicemails that swung from sobbing to screaming. My uncle told relatives I was stealing everything and brainwashing Pop. My mom tried a new tactic. She showed up at my apartment with groceries like nothing happened, then cried in my kitchen and said, please, just give them something. You don't understand how people will talk. I understand exactly, I told her, and my voice shook. I've been the story you all told for years. Mr. Tan sent formal letters. He handled the ugliness with calm professionalism that made my family furious, because you can't guilt-trip a solicitor. The will stood. The accounts were processed. The block went into sale prep. The house transferred. The whole time, I felt like I was holding grief in one hand and conflict in the other, and both were heavy. But the thing no one tells you about being the executor is that it's not power in a fun way. It's responsibility with a target on your back. It's waking up at 3 a.m. thinking, what if I make a mistake and they use it to destroy me? It's opening Pop's cupboards and finding his old mugs and feeling like you've been punched because he's not there to complain about how you stack them. It's grief with paperwork attached. The outwitting part wasn't me being clever. It was me being prepared. It was Pop preparing me. It was refusing to get rushed, refusing to get cornered, refusing to sign something because a room full of people wanted a quick ending. And the speechless part? That happened again, later, quietly, when the sale of the development block finalized. My family had been so sure there was going to be a massive payout they could celebrate, like grief could be converted into cash, and then into new cars and renovations. They'd been circling it like sharks for years. What they didn't know, because they never asked Pop anything unless it benefited them, was that Pop had already decided what he wanted that money to do. He'd set aside a significant portion for a local scholarship fund at the trade school he'd gone to as a young man. He'd written a letter explaining why. Because he'd seen kids with potential get stuck because their families couldn't afford tools, fees, transport. He'd also donated another portion to the hospice that cared for him, with a note that said, so someone else can have a nurse who doesn't rush. When Mr. Tan explained it to my aunt in a meeting she demanded, she insisted I come, like she still believed she could stare me down. My aunt sat there blinking like her brain couldn't compute generosity that didn't revolve around her. So, that money is just gone? She whispered, horrified. It's not gone, Mr. Tan said calmly. It's allocated exactly as your father instructed. My uncle's face went red. He was manipulated. He barked again like it was his only spell. Mr. Tan didn't even look up from his notes. Your father was very consistent over several years, he said. There is extensive documentation. My aunt turned to me then, eyes bright with fury. You did this, she spat, like I'd stolen the donation and thrown it in the ocean. I looked at her and felt something settle in my chest. Sadness, yes, but also relief. Because in that moment, I could finally see how little Pop's actual life meant to them compared to what they thought they could extract from his death. No, I said quietly. Pop did, and I'm proud of him. My aunt's mouth opened, and nothing came out. Truly nothing. She just stared, stunned, like she'd expected me to be ashamed. And that was the real win. Not money, not property, not control, just not being ashamed anymore. I still miss Pop in stupid, everyday ways. I still catch myself wanting to call him when I find a good deal on oranges because he loved telling me which ones were a scam. I still walk into his house, sometimes, and feel the absence like a physical thing. The lemon tree out back is still there, stubborn and alive. I water it even when I'm too tired because Pop would have side-eyed me if I didn't. My relationship with my family is different now. Some of them still won't look me in the eye. Some of them pretend nothing happened. My mom tries, sometimes in her messy way, but she still slips into old patterns when she's scared of judgment. Bree and I are closer than ever, mostly because we both stopped pretending. And me? I'm not suddenly a confident, unbothered person. I'm still the kind of person who feels things deeply and replays conversations in the shower and wonders if I could have said something softer. But I also know now that softness without boundaries is just another way to get used. My family tried to steal my inheritance by turning grief into pressure and paperwork into a trap. They tried to make me small enough to sign away Pop's choices so they could call it peace. Instead, I did what Pop asked. I respected him. I respected myself. I let the truth stand in the room, even when it made people uncomfortable. And the look on their faces when they realized they couldn't bully reality anymore. When Pop's voice, even from a little phone screen, cut through all their stories. That look is something I won't forget. Not because it felt good to hurt them, because it felt good to finally stop letting them hurt me.